My name is Professor Alex Whitmore. I teach cognitive psychology at the university. Have for the last 12 years. I deal in facts, in empirical data, in things that can be measured, tested, and proven. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to describe, what happened to me 3 months ago, contradicts everything I've spent my life believing. And I need you to understand that I am not a man prone to hysteria. I am not superstitious. I do not believe in ghosts or demons or things that go bump in the night. Or at least, I didn't. This story begins on a Thursday morning in late October. I was sitting in my office grading papers when I received an email from someone I hadn't heard from in 15 years. Professor Albert Brennan, my mentor, my former teacher, the man who inspired me to pursue academia in the first place. The email was brief, almost strangely so. Alex, it's been too long. I'd like to see you. Can you come visit? I'm living out past Ridgefield now. Quiet place, farm property, attached are directions. Hope to see you soon. Albert. I stared at that email for a long time. 15 years. No phone calls, no letters, no contact at all. And now, out of nowhere, an invitation. Something about it felt off. But Albert had been important to me once, and curiosity, professional and personal, got the better of me. So I replied. I told him I'd come that weekend. Saturday morning, I packed a small bag, threw it in the trunk of my car, filled up on gas, and I started driving. The drive was supposed to take about 5 hours. Ridgefield was far, rural, the kind of place you don't end up in by accident, the kind of place people go to disappear. The weather that morning was strange, overcast, heavy gray clouds pressing down on the horizon like a lid on a pot. The air had that thick electric quality it gets before a storm, but the forecast hadn't called for rain. I remember thinking that was odd. For the first 2 hours, the drive was uneventful. Highway, small towns, gas stations, the usual. But as I got further from the city, the road began to change. The highway gave way to 2-lane back roads, and then those back roads narrowed into winding paths that cut through dense stretches of forest. The trees pressed in close on both sides. Old growth, thick trunks, branches that arched overhead and blocked out what little light there was. It felt like driving through a tunnel. I don't know how long I'd been on that forest road when I started to feel it. That prickling sensation at the back of your neck, the one that tells you something is watching. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Nothing, just trees, just road, just the gray light filtering through the canopy. But the feeling wouldn't go away. And then, a sound. Sharp, sudden. The car lurched to the right. I gripped the wheel and eased onto the shoulder, my heart hammering in my chest. I sat there for a moment, just breathing. Then I got out to inspect the damage. Like something had torn through it. I crouched down to get a closer look. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach turn. There was a gash in the rubber. Clean, deliberate. Not the kind of damage you get from running over a nail or hitting debris. This looked intentional. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there was a rational explanation. But standing there alone on that empty road, surrounded by trees that seemed to lean in closer with every passing second, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had wanted me to stop. I changed the tire as quickly as I could. My hands were shaking the entire time, not from cold, from something else. When I finally got back on the road, I drove faster than I should have. I just wanted to get there, to reach Albert's farm and step out of that oppressive stretch of forest. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was late afternoon. The sky had darkened even further, and as I stepped out of the car, the rain began. Albert's house sat at the end of a long gravel drive. It was a farmhouse, old, 2 stories, white paint peeling in places. There was a barn off to the side, a few overgrown fields stretching out behind the property. It looked abandoned, not in the literal sense, but in the way a place looks when it's been lived in alone for too long. I grabbed my bag and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. And there he was. Albert looked older than I remembered, much older. His hair had gone completely gray. His face was lined and gaunt. But it was his eyes that struck me most. They were tired. Not the tired you get from a bad night's sleep. The tired that comes from something deeper. Something that eats at you. Alex, he said softly. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a while. It's good to see you. I forced a smile. You too, Albert. It's been a long time. He nodded and stepped aside to let me in. The inside of the house was dim. A few lamps scattered throughout the rooms, casting weak pools of yellow light. The furniture was sparse, functional, nothing decorative. It felt more like a place someone was staying than a place someone lived. We settled into the living room. Albert gestured to an old armchair and I sat. He lowered himself into a chair across from me, moving carefully, like his body hurt. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Just the sound of rain against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. "I'll make us some coffee," Albert said, finally standing. "Sure," I replied, "that sounds good." He disappeared into the kitchen. I sat there looking around the room, and that's when I noticed it. Everything was off, not in an obvious way, but in small, unsettling ways. The furniture wasn't arranged naturally. It was pushed against the walls, like someone had cleared the center of the room. There were no photographs, no books, no personal items of any kind. Just empty space. Albert returned a few minutes later with 2 mugs of coffee. He handed me one and sat back down. We talked, or at least we tried to talk. I asked him how he'd been, what he'd been doing out here all these years. He answered in short, distracted sentences. His eyes kept darting around the room, not at me, past me, over my shoulder, to the doorway behind me. I tried to ignore it at first, told myself he was just nervous, maybe uncomfortable with company after so much isolation. But the longer we sat there, the more obvious it became. Albert wasn't listening to me. He was listening to something else. I was mid-sentence, talking about my work at the university, when he suddenly held up a hand, cutting me off. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I stopped, listened. "Hear what?" I asked. "I don't hear anything." He stared at the doorway for a long moment. Then slowly, reluctantly, he turned back to me. "Never mind," he muttered. "Go on." I tried to continue, but the mood had shifted. The air felt heavier. I kept glancing at the doorway myself now, wondering what he'd heard, or thought he'd heard. A few minutes later, it happened again. This time, Albert didn't ask if I'd heard it. He just stood up, violently. His chair scraped backward across the floor. "Who's there?" he shouted. I froze. "Albert," I said carefully, "what's going on? Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He was staring at the hallway that led to the kitchen. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. His breathing was shallow. "Albert," I said again, louder this time, "there's no one there." He turned to look at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw fear in his eyes. He sat back down slowly, rubbed his face with both hands. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I'm sorry." "What's going on?" I asked. "Talk to me." He shook his head. "You wouldn't believe me." "Try me." He looked at me for a long time. Then he spoke. "There's someone in this house," he said. "Someone who shouldn't be here." I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" "A man," Albert said. His voice was barely above a whisper now. "He shows up, randomly, in different places. The kitchen, the bedroom, the hallway. I'll turn around and he's just there." "What does he do?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to know. "Nothing," Albert said. "He doesn't speak, he doesn't move. He just stands there, staring." I felt anger rising in my chest, not at Albert, at the situation, at whatever breakdown or isolation-induced paranoia had brought me all the way out here. I slammed my hand on the arm of the chair. "Albert, this is ridiculous. What kind of nonsense is this?" He flinched. "I knew you wouldn't believe me." "Because it's insane," I snapped. "You've been living out here alone for too long. You're seeing things that aren't there." I stood up. "I'm leaving." "Alex, wait." "No," I said firmly. "I drove 5 hours to get here. I changed a tire in the middle of the woods. And for what? To listen to ghost stories?" I turned and started walking toward the door. Albert ran after me. He grabbed my arm. "Please," he said. "I'm not lying. I haven't lost my mind. You have to believe me." "Let go of me," I said coldly. "Alex." A bowl hits the floor in the kitchen. We both froze. Albert's grip on my arm tightened. "You see," he whispered. "I told you, he's here." I felt my pulse quicken, not from fear, from frustration. "Who's here?" I shouted. "Who?" "Come with me," Albert said. "You'll see." I followed him to the kitchen. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave, but I had to know. I had to see whatever it was that had driven this man to the edge. We stepped into the kitchen, and there, on the floor, was a small gray cat. It was sitting next to a shattered bowl, licking its paw. I turned to Albert. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, from rage. "A cat," I said slowly. "You dragged me out here. You scared the hell out of me, over a cat." "Alex, no. Living out here alone has made you lose your mind," I shouted. I turned and started walking back toward the front door. Alex, stop! Albert grabbed my arm again, harder this time. Get off me! Listen to me! Albert's voice cracked. It's not the cat, it's him. The man I told you about. He's real. I yanked my arm free. What man? There is no man. There is! Albert was nearly shouting now. He's completely black, black face, black body, and his eyes... He stopped. Swallowed hard. His eyes are white, large, like they're glowing. He doesn't talk. He doesn't move. He just stares. I stared at him. This man who'd once been brilliant, respected, admired, reduced to this. Albert, I said quietly, after everything you've read, everything you've studied, science, history, philosophy, you're telling me you believe in, what, demons, ghosts? I didn't believe either, he said, until I saw him. This is pathetic, I said. I turned away from him one last time, and that's when Albert spoke again. His voice was different now, flat, empty. Alex, he said, look at the mirror. I stopped walking. I don't know why. Maybe it was the tone of his voice. Maybe it was something else. But I turned, slowly, and I looked at the mirror hanging on the wall beside the door. I saw my reflection. I saw Albert standing behind me, and I saw something else, standing in the hallway, just beyond the edge of the light. A figure, tall, impossibly black, not shadow, not darkness, black, like a hole cut into reality. And the eyes, two large white circles, staring directly at me. I don't want to talk about what happened next. I can't. Not because I don't remember, but because I'm afraid if I say it out loud, he'll hear me. All I'll say is this. I barely survived that night, and I never saw Albert again. If you're listening to this, then listen this carefully. If you are among those people who think there is nothing like demons or ghosts, then you are totally wrong. Every darkness brings a massage about them. I was a man that was never ready to accept such thing ever in my life. But after this incident, I believe everything about them. To make it clear to you, the Albert that I meet wasn't Albert. He was pretending to be Albert. And whoever he was, he knows exactly how to catch my attention, and choosing Albert was the perfect choice. I don't know what was his purpose of dragging me there, but I survived that night barely, and if you think there is no ghosts, you are wrong.